Welcome to SCTV's International Affairs. My name is Rashid Kanchan. I'll be your host. I have a very distinguished, knowledgeable panelist today. He is Sir John Charles Dalton, an international experienced consultant who has experience in almost all continents, and he understands international affairs, financial segments very well. Today we will focus both of the issues, and from Washington DC we will have Norman Flat-Barnes, SCTV's geopolitical correspondent based in Washington DC. And before starting the show, let me read out some of the breaking news. A first phase ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect on October 10, involving the release of hostages and withdrawal of Israeli forces to pre-designed lines. Egypt has announced it will host an international summit in Sharm el-Sheikh on Monday, with over 20 world leaders expected to attend to further negotiate a peace settlement. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin from Norman. Norman, let us know what are the latest breaking news stories you have popping up in the United States mainstream medias, and what are the developments you have, or do you find anything important to put for today's discussion, as we have a very experienced panelist here today in the studio.
Hello. Good
yes,
morning.
Norman, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Today is Sunday, and the world is focusing on the Middle East. The upcoming peace summit scheduled for Monday. President Trump is scheduled to be there, along with hopefully the hostages being released by 12 noon. And over here, we are still dealing with the issue with the budget. The president has found some funds to pay the military, but everyone else is out of luck. That's the biggest story right now is Israel and how the world is going to perceive it. Will or not? Will it work? Will it not work? We wait and see.
All right. As you said, will it work or will not work? So I have a question for John Dalton. What are the biggest obstacles, sir, you see to achieving a truly sustainable ceasefire in Gaza from both the sides?
Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone, and Norman, nice to see you again. And good morning, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I think right away, of course, the demilitarization and the decommissioning of the weapons of Hamas is the number one sticking point. They've been burnt before, where they thought they had a deal and the deal fell through, and they were sort of at the mercy of Israel in the process. It's very difficult, because this is if you look at past negotiations, say in Northern Ireland, for example, just as one example, or the Sandinistas, is that what you had is always a situation where you were dealing with some part of the government. Hamas is no government. It's not a sovereign state. It has no capacity. So it's a rebel group negotiating with a sovereign state, Israel. So that's how firm are the commitments that Hamas would make. We don't know. That's going to be one of the sticking points for sure. The other one is like the idea of having Palestinian technocrats run Palestine as part of the peace process really goes back to the problem that was in existence after the Oslo Accords, where the PLO returned to returned to Palestine, and brought with them from Tunisia all of these technocrats that took up key positions in the temporary government. And all of the Palestinians who had been on the ground and had been fighting for peace and justice for so many years were excluded, totally left out. And so while in Hamas there were representative organizations, everything shifted to Ramallah. And Ramallah was the center of government. And Hamas was once again, in that case, organizationally, institutionally, left out of power. So I think they'd be very cautious about that. If the Gazans, all of the Gazans, of bringing in, importing from the diaspora, Palestinian technocrats who are going to take over in a situation. They've shed no blood, they've shed no losses, they've not had their houses destroyed. There will be some tension there, to be sure. And the other thing is, of course, I want to see who ponies up the money. I mean, are they Saudi Arabia and Qatar and China, willing to put in a bunch of money for the reconstruction of Gaza? It's been devastated. So those I see as two really of sort of sticking points on both sides. And we've been down this road before. In 2024, there was a three-stage agreement that the Biden administration reached. Released the hostages, 200 were released, everything was done. Then, in a month's time, there were no step 2 or step 3. The whole deal fell apart. So I'm very hopeful. I'm praying that this peace, that all the Gazans can convince Hamas to lay down their arms, take up some peaceful reconstruction jobs, and we can move on with peace in the Middle East like that.
Right, but you have raised one question as Hamas does not have any constitutional body, or they might face some chain of command problem. So from Hamas there will be some problem probably, but we are hopeful. Norman, you are hearing Sir John Dalton. I'll have a question for you like this. How essential is the role of international journalism and press freedom in conflict zones? What are the risk and moral or ethical responsibilities in this regard you feel, Norman?
The issue with international journalism, particularly critical in conflict zones like we're talking about, the need for transparency and accuracy is paramount. The risk for potential censorship, danger to journalism, risking their lives, and to get the story out. Basically, in journalism, you have a moral duty to provide accurate information as much as possible while safeguarding the safety of the sources. So that's going to be a very tricky situation going into this unknown area, what's going on. Gaza is a mess. It's going to be, it's almost like, I use the analogy, you're in a plane, but you're trying to design a plane while you're in the plane. So it's very tricky. They're trying to figure out how to solve this thing at the same time they end the conflict and not knowing where the part is, who's going to do what, and how this thing's going to end, how we're going to land it.
All right. We are very lucky that Sir Dalton has the experience to work in Gaza, in that area. So I want to go for a same question but in a different pattern. Should the international community press more strongly for independent, unrestricted access for aid and media also? What leverage do they have?
Well, right now they have maximum leverage. It's going to decline after this for sure. If there's any leverage at all, they have it now. And so I think it's everybody is celebrating, and this is the time to make sure aid is being provided. To stand up some kind of, the United States is providing a communication center, 200 soldiers to handle all of the logistics and make sure that the UN delivery trucks are coming in and dispensing the food and other supplies. So I think that's probably a good thing, is that the UN is definitely going to be well accepted. Journalism is always going to be restricted by some kind of controls. I mean, Al Jazeera is not allowed in, CNN is not allowed in. So there'll be a managed news by Israel for sure for some period of time. So we're not going to get the complete picture. But I think this is the time to get as much as you possibly can. And I hope that peace summit and all of the people that come together at Sharm el-Sheikh, which is a beautiful place, can agree on sort of a reconstruction plan for Gaza.
Exactly, sir. One just question I want to add. How does media coverage shape global public opinion and foreign policy in conflict like this, like Israel-Gaza conflict?
Well, the truth is hard to find in those situations, to be honest. I mean, it's managed news. People are trying to use it for disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, whatever position they're trying to advance. And we've seen that wherever there's been a conflict, even when there are pro-Palestinian protests at American universities or in London and other cities, they are characterized as being anarchic as opposed to being freedom fighters and pushing for justice in the world. So the news media has already kind of shown a little bit of a bias by referring to all of these mostly young Palestinian protesters or pro-Palestinian protesters as being disruptive and not being reliable.
All right. Last question regarding the same issue to Norman, because this question is very important. What are the long-term implications for Israel, Palestine, and their neighbors if ceasefires are temporary and media access remains restricted?
Yes, in this situation, a temporary ceasefire and limited media access can and most likely will entrench grievances. We dealing with two parties that they have entrenched historical grievances. They're not going to go away. We're going to have a peace process, but they still have the issues, the grievances, and it will, if they can't manage these grievances, it will hinder the peace process and destabilize the region. And we're back in this cycle again. We start something and then we get into the next stage, and then next thing you know, we're back to the same situation going on. And that can also limit the international humanitarian efforts and awareness because of this cycle of violence that is never resolved because of their deep-set grievances.
All right, Norman. Yes,
One
sir.
thing in the 20 points, one of the 20-point items is an interfaith dialogue that has been proposed to try to get the youth of the Israeli youth and the Palestinian youth talking together. It's been successful before. There's been these camps. But there, like, I agree totally with Norman. There are deep-seated grievances in both of these parties, particularly among the adults and among the people who have lost a son or a daughter. So the end, if you look at the 17, 18, 19, and 20 of the 20-point plan, they're all sort of aspirational, trying to make things better, including this interfaith dialogue that I mentioned.
That will help both the nations to come closer.
One hopes in the future.
All right, sir. So let us look at the Nobel Peace Prize. The awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to opposition figure Maria Corina Machado, political isolation of Maduro's government and what this means for democracy and legitimacy. I want to do the first question to Sir Dalton here. Sir, what does the Nobel Peace Prize awarded to Maria Corina Machado symbolize both domestically within Venezuela and globally too?
Well, first of all, I think that the most incredible peaceful action that has been taken in the recent time by Donald Trump came too late in the process for him to be considered for the 2025 Nobel Prize. So let's take that aside. But the Nobel Peace Prize, awarded by a Norwegian committee of politicians, as opposed to the Swedish medicine and science, often gets it wrong. They have, they give it to people who are sort of politically active as opposed to people who are pursuing peace in a very quiet, consistent manner. So I think that I feel sorry for this woman because she's probably a very noble and wonderful woman who's doing great things in Venezuela. But the fact of the matter is it will always be considered the substitute candidate for the Peace Prize. But it's a nice payday and good for her. And I hope she continues to do it.
Let her congratulate from here. Norman, can international recognition like a Nobel Prize effectively influence political change in authoritarian or semi-authoritarian regimes like Maduro's?
International recognition can inspire momentum and a point of legitimacy. However, its effectiveness is tempered by the regime's resilience and willingness to ignore external pressures. So, yes, this is a very nice and something that is noble, like as they say, the Nobel Prize, but a lot more has to happen.
All right, I just need one more questions on it. What are the legal, moral and practical limits for international actors like United Nations, foreign states, NGOs in supporting opposition movements in different countries like in Bangladesh, like in Nepal, Sri Lanka or in Venezuela?
Well, I mean, NGOs would be wise to stay out of that kind of a battle. As soon as they get involved, next thing you know, the government will try to enact laws restricting all NGOs from having any access at the local level. This has happened in Ethiopia when I was there. It's happened in many countries where the NGOs become active in political activities. The government cracks down immediately, and it's not a pretty sight. But I think that, there are always two sides to these issues. A Maduro government may be evil in some people's eyes, but in other people's eyes, they're just, they're freedom fighters. And so I think that the UN can constantly promote activities like this and hopefully say, find ways to keep Maduro's government from becoming too repressive. But it's a marginal role. It's a temporary buzz. But I don't think it's going to have any lasting effect. But I give the woman hats off, credit.
Yeah.
But it's a temporary buzz.
Definitely. Let me get the impression from Norman. People were expecting that Donald Trump is going to be awarded Nobel this time, but finally did not. And many organizations, like even Israeli Prime Ministers, wrote letter to Nobel Committee to award him Nobel. My question would be, how might this prize affect Mexico, US, European or Latin American policy toward Venezuela especially?
The award will may lead to increased diplomatic pressures or sanctions against the Maduro regime and greater support for opposition movements by the U.S., Europe, and other countries in Latin America. That's about it. I mean, it's pretty clear that it creates exposure and recognition at the same time, and it puts pressure on Maduro to basically get his act together.
All right, now I need to know something, globally. What are the risks of the opposition and average citizens? Reprisals, further repression and fragmentation after such high-profile international awards?
It'll be dismissed by the Maduro regime as just politics as usual. He's the victim. Why are they picking on us? This is a perfectly well-elected government. We very, very happy that Venezuela has been recognized as for some award, but this doesn't have anything to do with us. This is some manufactured kind of an award given to somebody who is opposed to the government. Ceremonial stuff, exactly. Thank you, Norman.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't think it has much effect.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the breaking news. I have just received that Russia launched a large-scale attack using over 450 drones and 30 missiles targeting Ukraine's energy grid. Kiev suffered widespread power outrage and damage to infrastructure. The UK Prime Minister held talks with President Zelensky and condemning Russia's actions and pushing for further sanctions and support for Ukraine. Time has come to go for a short break, but after the break we'll discuss about the Russia's aggression to Ukraine again and what are the development of the peace negotiations.
building with spacious banquet, car lift, sky view rooftop restaurant, all in one. Grand Club Limited, Mirpur 10, Dhaka.
কি এমন জিনিস যেটা সব লোকে খায়, ছোটরা খেলে পরে কেঁদে মায়ের কাছে যায়, বৃদ্ধ লোক খেলে পরে মাথায় দেয় হাত, যুবক যুবতীরা খেলে পরে এদিক ওদিক তাকায়?
ছেড়ে দে শয়তান, ছেড়ে দে, দেহ পেলে আমার মন পাবি না, ছেড়ে দে।
কোন ফলের বীজ নেই বলো দেখি দাদা, বলতে না পারলে হবে তুমি গাধা।
মন্দিরা চক্রবর্তী কার সাথে প্রেম করছে?
আমি এখন মা হতে চলেছে।
চিনেছি তোমারে আকারে প্রকারে, দিনের আলো রাতের আধারে।
কোন বাসায় শুধু দুজন থাকে, দরজা জানালা ছাদ কিছুই থাকে না?
পা, পায়ের নুপুর, ছন্দ,
মনে হচ্ছে কি ছু দিয়ে জাদু মন্ত্র।
এক্স্যাক্টলি, পায়ের নুপুর আমার।
অরিক্স স্পেশাল সেলিব্রিটি শো তারকার ঝলক দেখবেন প্রতি শুক্রবার রাত 9:30
ভালোবাসা একবার তুমি বউ কইয়া ডাকো।
হ্যাঁ গো,
আর কত দূর?
আরে আমি তো ফিডের গাড়ির লগে।
তোমার গরু হাঁস মুরগি মাছ তো অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে।
কি কও, অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে? কেডা? হাঁস মুরগি মাছ।
আরে ওগো মতি গতি দেখা মনে হইতাছে এসএফএম ছাড়া কিছুই খাইবো না।
হ্যাঁ গো, এসে ফিডের খবর ওরা জানলো কেমনে?
আরে ভালো জিনিসের খবর ছড়াতে কি আর মাইক লাগে? খবর ভাসে বাতাসে বাতাসে।
আরে দেখো, এসে ফিডের জাদু।
সম্পূর্ণ নিজস্ব তত্ত্বাবধানে বিশেষজ্ঞদের সমন্বয়ে প্রস্তুত হয় এসএ ফিডের পশু খাদ্য। অত্যাধুনিক প্রযুক্তিতে তৈরি এই পশু খাদ্য যেমন নিরাপদ তেমনি স্বাস্থ্যকর। এসএ ফিড, নিরাপদ ফিড।
Negotiation talk is on the table, but Putin is still moving forward.
Well, I think that the Israeli Gaza settlement gives him kind of a smokescreen to go in and do more aggressive activity. Everybody's focused on the Middle East and what's going to happen there. And he figures, okay, well, no one's watching me. I'll do whatever I want to do. You know, if you target the energy in Ukraine with the winter coming, I mean, that is one of the coldest places in the world. I lived in Serbia and froze to death over one winter. And if they knock out the nuclear power plants, Zaporizhia, for example, and other plants that are existing in Ukraine, and there's no heating systems available, it is going to be the most miserable winter that people could endure. So he knows very well what he's doing. He's trying to create conditions on the ground that make Ukraine unlivable, and have them put pressure on the government to back off or to arrive at a settlement that allows him to keep all of the eastern provinces plus Crimea. I mean, he's a very clever, strategic guy, so I can't imagine he's doing this without some intent to try to hurt people, average people, so they put pressure on the government and Zelensky to come to the table and negotiate away the whole geographic side of the country, you know, the whole eastern half of Ukraine and Crimea.
Putin is doing everything intentionally and knowingly, and he wants to achieve.
Yeah, exactly.
Norman, you are hearing Sir Dalton is here from studio, and he has given the intention of Putin's aggression or attacks like this. My question is, his attack seems like Netanyahu style. His attack seems like Gaza style. He made Ukraine Gaza. What is your comment on that?
It's a strategic process. It's a tactic, a military tactic. Basically, we surround you, we cut off your resources, we kill your infrastructure, and we let you freeze to death. Go back to Waterloo. You know what happened with the Battle of Waterloo. Soldiers got out there and they got so far out that they basically froze in the fields. They weren't able to fight. Kill the resources, kill your process to the resources, and just let nature take its course.
Do you think after Israel-Gaza negotiations, the next focus by Donald Trump will be Russia-Ukraine, and he will be able to bring both the leaders together in the same table to discuss and to end this combat war?
That is the plan. He's been requested by his buddy in Ukraine, the president, that hey, you can fix the Middle East. You can also fix this. So we need you to get over here the next day, Tuesday. Let's start working on a peace plan, a peace settlement to get this thing in, because it's getting winter. Winter is going to be the determining factor. The weather will determine what goes next. If they can't get the energy, control the environment, and resources, it will be almost over.
Right. Don't ask me the sources, Norman. I already been informed that 32 points plan is going to be prepared by the Department of State, Department of War, and President himself and his team for handing over these 32 points to Zelensky and President Putin. I have been informed 32 points. Do you think this will be the next focus that Donald Trump wants to end this war too, and he will be able?
Yeah, well, he's already starting to turn the screws on companies that are buying Russian oil and sanctioning some of those to make sure that they get in line. So I'm sure that he, it's against the tide of his whole personality and history that he's doing all of these peaceful things. But congratulations. I hope that he goes in and gives a 32-point plan and sits down with people and they talk about what they can do. There are some really entrenched, difficult issues to be addressed in terms of the ethnic Russians in the eastern part of the country, the whole area there in Crimea. There's also the whole issue of whether or not Ukraine can be an independent country joining NATO. So there are some very difficult, entrenched political issues to deal with. But to your point, I don't think, and Norman is absolutely correct, this is like Waterloo in some respects, Stalingrad, whichever model you want to talk about.
Yeah.
There's no question that trying to get the weather to work for your advantage is what Putin is doing, is to knock out all the power plants so that you're stuck in this enclave and you people are freezing to death.
All right.
Yeah, frozen tundra.
Yes.
Yep.
Norman, one question comes in my mind that China, one of the world's superpower, financially very strong, militarily very strong, that has the capacity to contribute at negotiation table also, but China was very silent regarding the Israel and Gaza issue. Do you think China will be same very silent regarding the Russia and Ukraine issue as well?
Actually, China is not silent. They're just dormant right now. They are just waiting and strategically waiting to see the outcome of these conflicts. They have a plan. That plan is to basically move in as the alternative leader, show that we have another options. We can work with you after these conflicts are over. So they're playing very smart. They're providing resources, intelligence, and equipment to these conflicts without even getting their hands in. They're actually acting as a proxy, letting these battles, letting these conflicts go on, and we give the appearance as we are the peaceful solution to all of your problems, and we will help you come out of this embargo.
Dalton, would you mind to explain what is the China's strategy to improve their business channels, to improve their exports, to make more money, and let the people fight? We will only manufacture.
Well, that's probably part of that strategy. They have a multi-pronged strategy, so anything that you said is probably going to be a little bit correct. I think what they're really looking for long-term is to destroy the dollar and to gain power over the dollar so that it is no longer the dominant currency and the yuan replaces it in some respect. This is already being talked about in BRICS. expanded BRICS. BRICS is growing under Chinese leadership more and more. China is heavily invested in Africa, as is the EU now to counter that investment. So their strategy is, as I say, and they will play the long game. They'll wait and wait and wait.
Yep.
And they will just simply wait
wait
to see where the chips fall, and they will try to take strategic advantage of that. They have huge amount of reserve money, basically by buying U.S. treasuries in the past. So they're a key actor. They want to be perceived as a positive force, however, in some respects, and they want to be in a bipolar situation with the United States. That these are the two possible sources for power in the United States and in China. So, you gotta commend their long view, historical view. They know how to play the game of strategy.
Let me get the feedback from Norman. Norman, China is expanding its dominance, as Dalton Sir is telling, that in Africa, other developing countries, in Asia Pacific areas, Oceanian areas, Australian belt, South Asia, China is influencing almost so many countries, even more than the United States control. Do you really think one day, there will be one time, United States also will be influenced by China's economy, China's military strength, and China's very constructive policy?
China has already impacted the U.S. economy. The eyes should be looking at the rise of the global South, and it's being done through the BRICS. The BRICS are very compelling. I've been following them. They've been very assertive in their plan. They want to, as Sir Dalton said, they want to replace the dollar. They are moving to have something. And China is using this word, I'm going to keep saying, we want to be the alternative. So we get to the point where you have to choose between them and us. We would be the best option because they are in conflict. Their dollar is dropping. Tariffs is charging more. Come to us. We will give you an alternative solution. And that will probably work to a point where the United States will have to decide to join the game, participate, not just join the game, but participate in the knowledge that we have a competitor that we have to work with.
And many European countries also took loans from China. That's why some commentator or some analyst are saying Europe might be divided one day because Europeans are taking cash loans from China. China is getting into Europe, which dominates the NATO and the European Union. Sir, how you are gazing after Africa, after Asia, after Latin America, China is financially invading Europe.
Financially invading, yeah. Yeah, and money has leverage and money talks. There are Asian countries, for example, in Sri Lanka, where China provided all kinds of financial assistance and support. They built a port area in the south near Galle and Hambantota, and Sri Lanka, unable to meet its debt, had to turn over the operation of that port to China. China is building a huge extension off the Colombo coast in Sri Lanka, and they're bringing in Chinese workers to do it. This has happened in many African countries where I've worked. All of a sudden, in the DRC, when I was working in the Congo, China comes in with all of this wonderful, huge amount of money, but then there are like all of the facts that the debt that comes due is intolerable for the countries to be able to pay it back. So in some respects, they're really also converting away from pure infrastructure investment, in Africa anyway, moving into renewables, into energy, into things that are more consumer oriented. So they're backing off a little bit in terms of just infrastructure.
All right, Norman, I know you have time limitations, but for some reason, if line be disconnected, our production team will connect you again because we still have to know many things about the shutdown development. What are the latest you have regarding the U.S. federal government shutdown issue?
The shutdown is still on. No changes. The president has gone to the golf course. He went to the golf course out here in Virginia yesterday, and the Republicans are having parties. So they don't care. They're moving on, and they want this thing to move on. Jobs are being lost. People got pink slips yesterday, Monday, coming in Monday. 4,000 people have been laid off. Health and Human Services, Kennedy has decimated the Center for Disease. 1,000 people have been laid off. Matter of fact, one of my family members worked down in Atlanta, is probably going to get a notification on that.
All right,
So-
Norman, we are going to be connected very soon. Let me come to studio where Sir John Charles Dalton is here, an international consultant who is totally amazing, experienced personality. Sir, I just want to know, the congressmen are getting their paychecks, the senators are getting their paychecks, president managed money to pay to the Marines, soldiers. What about the ordinary federal workers? They are not getting, and their life is going to be miserable. They
Yep.
cannot pay the students, their children's tuition fees, healthcare, food, house rent. What kind of discriminating approach is this in a democracy like United States?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the Republicans are still blaming the Democrats for shutting down the government because the Democrats are trying to assure health care for millions of Americans that otherwise would not have it. That seems to me on the surface to be a losing argument among cognizant people in the United States, thinking Americans. Like, how can it possibly be the Democrats' problem when they're trying to expand services in healthcare to protect children and women and people on insulin and those things? And the problem that, if you wrap it up a little bit, you know, the big, beautiful bill was passed, Trump's signature piece, putting all of this together. If you take out, if the subsidies continue, they have to find on the other side of the equation, if that's an expenditure, where are they going to get the revenues to cover that cost, the Republicans' philosophy. So that's what they're holding out for, because in the United States, health insurance and health care, it's a private industry. It's not like NHS. So the whole issue is going to revolve around where do we get the money to pay for these health subsidies? And one of the ways they get it is by killing departments. CDC, as Norman indicated, is going to be closed down. The mental health institutes in the HHS has been closed down. So if they can cut enough from the federal workforce and federal organizations to compensate for the ACA subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies that are necessary, given the rising premium costs that are coming from the companies, then maybe the Republicans will make a move. But they're stuck with a budget that doesn't work anymore. As soon as you put back those healthcare subsidies, the 2025-2026 budget does not work. They have to find the money. And the only way they could do that is either increase taxes or take off the table all of the tax benefits that they gave before.
Sir, according to CNN's recent poll, 45% of Americans believes that it is the responsibility of the Republicans. They could not organize, though in both the houses they are leading. 30% population of Americans, they thought that Democrats are not cooperating, and 23% of the population, they are saying nothing, this is none of our business, it is a government failure.
Yeah.
My just question to you, as an experienced person you are, who is actually responsible according to the American political norms, according to the American political cultures, commitments and constitutions?
Well, my view, of course, is that there have to be some recognition that the private insurance premiums that finance ACA that are going to be doubled, you cannot throw millions of people off of their health care benefits. So the Democrats have the high moral ground on this issue. And in ordinary circumstances, there would be some response from the other side. Most of the shutdowns in the past have been about raising the debt ceiling. They have not been about a policy choice. Very rarely do you get a shutdown on a policy choice like this. So people who realize that absent Medicare, people can't get insulin. I mean, many children don't get health services that they need. The subsidies will kill health insurance. So I believe that people will come to realize that the Republicans, by defending the rich tax cuts that they gave, are punishing the children who would otherwise be covered in ACA benefits, that the Republicans will get even higher negative views about they're the ones who are responsible for the shutdown. And the longer it goes on, the more that becomes apparent that this is all about protecting the tax cut that they issued for their wealthy billionaire friends at the cost of the poor Americans who cannot afford insurance coverage.
Right, sir. Let us come back from a short commercial break. After that, I will ask you one question, sir. What is the last? I mean, how it will end? Is there any judicial influence, or is there any presidential executive order or something like that according to American Constitution? And we will definitely focus on one thing. United Nations peacekeeping budget cuts, therefore it will impact even in Bangladesh, because Bangladesh has a second largest troops in UN peacekeeping forces, and soldiers are paid very well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be right back.
প্রোটিন এসএ অ্যাগ্রোফিটস লিমিটেড একটি এসএ গ্রুপ অফ কোম্পানিজের প্রতিষ্ঠান।
Grand Palace, 5-star chain hotel, Zinda Bazaar, Sylhet. Local and international cuisines. Exclusive banquet hall for all events. 5-star luxurious rooms and suites with bulletproof glass. Fiberglass swimming pool. Relaxing spa. Well-equipped gym. Experience panoramic beauty at Satv Restaurant. Welcome to Grand Palace Hotel. Grand Palace Hotel and Resorts, Jollar Par, Zinda Bazaar, Sylhet, Bangladesh.
বাংলাদেশে দীর্ঘ ৩৭ বছরের সাফল্যের অগ্রযাত্রায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন আধুনিক ও শৈল্পিক স্থাপত্য শিল্পের দেশ মালয়েশিয়ার কুয়ালালামপুরে। লাখো গ্রাহকদের প্রয়োজনের দিক লক্ষ্য রেখে নিশ্চিত বিশ্বস্ততা ও আন্তর্জাতিক মানের সেবা এখন ডোর টু ডোর। এসএ পরিবহন কুরিয়ার অ্যান্ড পার্সেল সার্ভিস SDN BHT 120 Jalantun HS Lee 50050 Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
At studio, I have a very distinguished panelist, Sir John Charles Dalton, an international consultant who has experience in all over the world. Sir, 750,000 ordinary workers are not getting their paycheck.
Yeah.
President is playing golf in Virginia. Generals and soldiers are getting their check. Congressmen are getting their check, and senators also well paid. My question is, how this deadlock or gridlock will be opened, by whose influence? Is this judiciary? Is this president himself, or is this the negotiation between both the parties?
Well, on the judicial side, as I mentioned, there are lots of temporary restraining orders which have been requested by aggrieved parties. The labor unions and the government labor unions in the United States have gone to court to try to get them to cancel all of the RIFs, the reduction in force. And those are pending, but you have to go and have a hearing. And I mean, people are not getting paid, they're not having the ability to pay their bills. Saying that you're going to have a hearing, let's say in November, doesn't address their real concerns. So I don't see the judicial route as being a positive way to go. I think that the solution, if it comes at all, is going to have to come from some pressure from some high-powered private sector businessmen who say, now don't forget, the market was unaffected until all of a sudden Trump raised the tariffs on China again. They started threatening China. So if you signal that the stock market's not declining at all, that maybe someone says, well, this is just an internal battle. This is between the political battle. Let them fight it out. But there are real consequences and real victims, and 750,000 employees and their families are directly affected. And that's going to be a small number if it continues. So, I think the United States has a choice between whether or not these tax cuts can survive and keep going forward, or whether they're going to try to restore some semblance of sanity in government administration. But I said last week, I thought it would be like a quick fix. There'd be a stopgap measure that would deal with these 7-week period. But unless, they get some pressure from the White House, unless senators who are talking to their constituents realize that the red states are the ones which are suffering more than the blue states, and that so many people are being put off on Medicaid and don't have health insurance, unless that message starts to penetrate in Washington, then it's not going to happen. Speaker Johnson is keeping people away. The House is not even reconvened to have a discussion. The Senate has a continuing ways to discuss, and they continually put different solutions on the table, none of which have been accepted or even come close to being accepted. So I think that unless somebody looks at the financing of it and how they're going to try to find the money that would pay for the subsidies from modifying the tax cuts, I think it's going to be difficult.
Do you think there is a chance of a miracle that once Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffrey will say, enough is enough, we have embarrassed the president enough, now it is time to come forward and to help this helpless president?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that this is also, there is some brinksmanship going on between the two parties, of course. And the thing which is not maybe talked about enough is that the subsidies which are being requested by the Democrats are forever. Okay, this is a continuing subsidy. So this is not something which is like within only the 7-week continuing resolution. These are long-term consequences for the economy and the budget, because this is beyond the control of the Democrats or Republicans. Private health insurance will raise their premiums. These are outside the government control. So there's no way to predict how high those premiums might go, and therefore how much the government is going to have to pay in terms of the subsidy. So there is this like black box that's sitting there. Nobody knows exactly how much this is going to cost in 2027, 2028, 2029. And that is worrying people for sure, even the Democrats. But I'm hoping that somehow or other that the whole idea of like the big, huge tax cuts for the billionaires, that somehow, as they have done with some of the cuts that are going to affect people, they postpone those till 2026 and 27. Maybe they could like move some of those tax cuts out of this fiscal year and create enough fiscal space so that they could finance the subsidies. So that's what I hope.
Sir, I was telling you that UN peacekeeping budget cuts, and especially 25%. Bangladesh is also affected. The United States reduced funding of the United Nations, leading to a 25% cut of the global peacekeeping force, impacting operations in many conflict zones, including Bangladesh may suffer. Bangladesh will be sufferer.
They will.
My question, there is two questions. Is United States losing its hope for its superpower leadership among the world, or China somehow will take this place? I mean, China will be replaced in terms of funding to the United Nations.
Oh, welcome. Come on. I don't see that happening. And that's not in China's strategic interest. But Come on, bring the money. That's okay with me. Yeah, I've been in a number of countries where there have been the blue helmets there, the peacekeeping forces. I don't recall a huge contingent of Chinese on the ground. Bangladesh is there, Syrians are there, Lebanon is there, Lebanese, Haitians are there. But I don't see a huge contingent of China coming in to do this peacekeeping stuff. Welcome. Come on. Oh, welcome. I'm happy to see it. I think that there's also just a general feeling that the UN has grown like Topsy, that all of these agencies are just simply growing out of control. Too many agencies. I commend them. They're great. 17 UN agencies. They do wonderful work. But they're too many. Maybe they need to be consolidated. And that's what I think that Guterres is trying to do, cut back a little bit on the overhead expenses.
How do you see one thing? There is one gentleman. He's a man. The world called him Xi. He's Xi Jinping. He is creating so much of obstacles for the American progress. He is keeping Russia into his pocket in some extent. He is threatening India for progress, and he has a good ties with African tigers like South Africa. How one man is managing the entire world and bringing all of them into his.
Well, he's a very clever guy. I mean, he lived in Iowa for some time, so he knows the American system a little bit. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. However, I think there is simply still a bipolar system. Xi is being a very clever guy, handling some of his alliances. The war in Ukraine is helping him to provide support to Russia as well. But he is not ready to really go full court press on the United States. So if some of the things that they do advances infrastructure development and peace and so forth, congratulations. I mean, I'm all for that. We're not chauvinistic in the United States. If this, I don't see, having worked in development, the table's a big table. Come, put your money on the table, help people.
Sir, one last question to you, as you have very good experience in study on the political ups and downs of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is now run by an interim government led by Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus. People are moving into, according to mindset, into an election, but some critics are says that there is no sign of election this time. Political parties are demanding elections, and government is trying to do some corrections on the constitutions. Do you think election will be held in time, or the corrections will be done properly for the political parties and reforms will come?
That's a big question, right? Well, I think let's divide up the 84 items in the charter into two pots, the ones that can be enacted on easily and the ones that are going to require constitutional change. Anybody who has tried to put together an IKEA bookcase knows that you read the instructions first. And it seems to me that people would have known what are the constitutional restrictions on reform before they started proposing reform. If in fact you cannot enact a two-tiered legislative structure without the constitutional approval that's there now, how do you propose to proceed? If in fact you cannot limit the terms of office of the head of the party to 10 years or two terms in the Constitution, how do you prepare to proceed? So the cart got a little bit before the horse in terms of reform. Now, I also worry that this is a political problem, and everything that has been proposed, or much of what has been proposed, is a political solution, and not something which is looking at fundamentally what is the problem with 25% poverty in the country. What are we not doing about that? What is the restriction on the interim government acting to try to ease the burden on the population? What is the possibility of making education more rational? What are the things that can be done that do not involve all of this political legerdemain? So, I mean, it is a political, the problem was political. How can the solution be political? So I look at it that way.
That's a very, very powerful words you said. Problem is political, solution should be political. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I always wish birthday of the world's notable personality. Today also I have two birthdays in my hand. One is very notable journalist Chris Wallace. He is very famous for his television journalism. Today is his birthday. Chris Wallace, happy birthday from Satv's International Affairs. And another birthday, Edward VI, King of England, born 1537. By the way, today is my birthday as well.
Exactly, you and the king. Can I make one thing? I'd like to offer my sincere best wishes to the people in the Philippines, in Cebu and in Davao, where I lived, on these earthquakes which have been hitting the country. I hope everything turns out okay. Very nice people, wonderful, charming, wonderful people. I feel very, very sorry that that so much damage has been done by these earthquakes.
All right, sir. Sir John Dalton, huge gratitude for your very thought-provoking and very insightful facts and figures you have put today. And I really like for your very bird's-eye opinions on the issues you describe very easily. My audience informed me that they liked your presentation, they liked your commentary very, very much. My dear audience, will not deprive you. Every Sunday, you will see Sir John Charles Dalton, international consultant at SATV's International Show. I'll see you tomorrow.
Explore the magnificent view of Rangpur